Hello everyone, and welcome back to this month's Your Opinion is Shit, where I share my patrons' dumb opinions, and I tell them whether they're dumb or not. If you too want to have an opinion, feel free to follow the link in the description of my Patreon. Do it. I dare you. Listen, I'm gonna be honest, okay? The only way your opinion matters is if you give me all of your money. I'm kidding. Anyway, the question of the month was, what is the most boring period of history? And let's just say a lot of people decided to fuck around this month and find out, and honestly, I appreciate it. We are starting with a fairly straightforward answer, though. For DavCav, giving it a thought because history is and forever will be pretty damn wild, but the most boring part of history is not a certain period, but broad romanticism that you were likely taught or shown. The pilgrims sailed to a mysterious land and made America type of teachings that we were told long ago. History is not a clean or textbook, and a lot of the more crazy moments were either not talked about or glossed over, like the fact Emperor Caligula went to war with the ocean to show Neptune he was better than him. No, I entirely agree with this. To be fair, I've always been a fan of history, even when it was taught in that boring way, but I think the thing that really made me like history was getting away from textbooks and actually like just picking up books on my own that were just about things in history and just learning about all the crazy stuff. Like I specifically, right around the time I turned 18 or 17 was when I started really reading history books. And I bought 2 books on Rome for some stories I was writing. And I remember having a big old section in the Pompeii one about all the graffiti on the walls. And I thought that was hysterical. And stuff like that has really opened up my eyes to just people have just always been so fucking weird. And honestly, that's the beautiful part of history. It's just how bizarre and weird and silly people are. That's what I like about it. Honestly, that's what I love about it. So, DavCav, your opinion is not shit. For Greyman, shout outs to this thing I just found. I don't know about the most boring period, but the most boring day was probably the 18th of April 1930 when the BBC News announced there is no news, followed by piano music for the rest of the program. Honestly, that's just amazing. I think I've heard about that before, but like, what a fucking British thing to do, man. This is why I like British history. God, I do too much research in British history, but yeah, no, that's about right. For Jonathan Hummel, clearly the most boring time in history needs to be better defined. Worldwide? Western Civ? Our personal history, which would be when we're babies and literally can't do anything? If I have to answer to so broad a topic, obviously the most boring time in history was all the time before our dear hedgehog was born. Duh. Well, John Hummel, your opinion is shit. It's been boring ever since I've been born, baby. Making it boring since 1990. Anyway. For Noah, easily anything that pertains to the French. Your Spanish is showing. Next. Inquisitor Thomas. For once, actually giving one of the more serious answers. Usually Inquisitor Thomas is the one that fucks around and finds out, but this is an interesting turnaround. I honestly don't think any period of history is necessarily boring. Pretty much all parts of history has tons of colorful, wacky hijinks and dramatic, deep personal dynamics. However, a lot of time those interesting stories get buried or overshadowed because they might not play into the bigger picture development of modern nation states or the story just wasn't recorded. With that being said, a lot of medieval European history tends to be problematic in contrast with how much attention it gets. A lack of a lot of good primary sources, over-focus on military and royal history, and a lot of weird misconceptions made up by the Victorian crackpots that have managed to persist for what is nearly 2 centuries. No, the Victorians definitely did mess up a lot of things, for sure. Our stances on mythologies and stuff like that, but especially about history. I would actually argue that there are actually a fair amount of primary sources available about medieval history, but they aren't ones that are commonly available. So, just to show my hand at how much of a fucking weirdo I am, I didn't quite finish it, but I did do a medieval studies minor in college. And we actually learned a lot of interesting history about the daily life of medieval people, because medieval people actually wrote down a lot of shit. Like, at the very least, they were more literate than we think they were. Again, Victorian crackpots. But a lot of those sources are, very much tied to the halls of academia and really aren't very publicly available to a lot of people simply because the things like military history and royal history are just the things that tend to get the most just, I guess, viewage ultimately, which is sad because I think how the common folk lived in medieval society is fucking fascinating. But anyway, moving on to Tyrant. That brings me back to when I was in high school. I had this weird looking history teacher who always had the shades down in his classroom, kept rambling on and on about Atlantis, Lemuria and shit. There's a link up there. Maybe it's there. I don't know. It's somewhere. Follow the link. Ted Balls! Windy Fields. The Atlantis Arc. There's a link up there. Follow the link. I don't know why everyone decided to reference my stories this time. Oh, wait. It's because my stories have such a history twist in them. Anyway. For Xavier Pena, the Georgian period, it's an era of British history that was only interesting because of the monarchy and an era that they deliberately do not teach in British schools. Well, to be fair, part of the reason why they don't teach the Georgian period is because that's when the revolutions all happened. Specifically the American Revolution, but there were a lot of other smaller revolutions, and Britain lost a lot of its territory in especially the continental United States. But yeah, no, besides that, it's pretty boring. Most of what was going on in Britain was not very interesting at the time. So your opinion is not shit. And I think that's about everybody. So thank you so much once again for your beloved opinions. Some of them were shit, some of them were not, and some of them were just fucking around, and we love to see it. So I will see you all back here next month. Same bad time, same bad channel. Not really, these are never on time. Bye! Special thanks goes out to all my priests of the hog and my elder hog prophets. Adra, Chronoton, Eshok7, Greyman, Jonathan Hummel, Casey and Moore, Ventus Agri, Xavier Pena, and Yoko Elf. Thanks a bunch, guys.